Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Hernando County. And joining me today is one of our Master Gardener volunteers, Bernie. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
Good morning, Doctor. I'm doing very well.
Here, let me get all the background graphics set up correctly here. There we go. And we should have our Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator, Colby on here with us this morning. And he should be here with us shortly. So if that's okay, we'll go ahead and get started with your questions without him. And then when he can pop in, he will. So Bassem, good morning. How are you? Probably a little chilly over there in Seminole County. I know it is here in Hernando County. Alessandra, good morning. Let me guess you're probably outside working in your garden listening to us. And here he comes. There we are. Hey, Colby, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Sorry about that.
That's quite okay. We went ahead and started with people's questions, comments, and everything else already. So Alessandra's heading out to work in her garden today, probably. Yeah, I was just about to say, it's a little chilly outside at this moment, and she agrees. She's going to be out there mulching her fruit trees, which is always a good idea. Any time of year is a good time of year to pull those weeds, freshen the mulch, don't make it too thick. Bernie and I were just talking about somebody who has a problem with some hedge bushes, some podocarpus. And I don't know the situation yet. I haven't spoken with the lady at length or seen pictures. But I know that if you have fruit trees, hedges, bushes outside, and you put down a mulch, that's too much. It'll block the weeds, but it blocks water also, or if a lot of water gets down, it blocks it from evaporating, and your plant can suffer from fruit rot. So just 1 to 3 inches of mulch is fine. You'll be good.
Colby, can you turn the mic gain down on your end? There we go. Thank you.
There we go. So, hey guys, for anybody who's watching us live, if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comments. And we are live on Facebook and 2 different YouTube channels today. So no matter where you're watching us from, just go ahead and put your comments, your questions, something you want us to discuss, give you some advice on, and we'd be more than happy to do so. There's a very good chance that we have Teresa kind of lurking in the background. So as we're struggling through answers, she will hopefully be pulling up links to University of Florida fact sheets that are going to help you out. And there's great things to print out, hold on to for future reference. So I see we got a couple people on here with us live. Good morning, Ann. How are you? So Bernie, has anybody come by with any questions or problems yet this morning?
Well, I've got somebody coming in right after the program. You know, I had an interesting situation. I had frost on the windshield this morning.
Oh, no.
Oh, that is an indication that the good times are soon to be over. And it also probably means that we need to start explaining how to prepare plants for colder weather. Some of the tender plants obviously are going to get some damage if we start having real frosts in the morning.
Yes, they will. And we have a lot of basically all different plants are going to take different levels of cold weather. So it all depends on what plant we're talking about. Out in front of my house, I have a American holly hedge, and it could get down to 0, and it's not going to hurt that at all. I could magically fly my hedge up to New Jersey, and it would probably do as well up there as it does down here because it tastes cold just great. Now, if you're growing a mango tree, totally different situation. Mangoes apparently do really benefit from a certain amount of cold temperatures, like 40-ish or so, to stimulate flowering and fruit production the following spring. But when you start getting below that, you get into a danger zone for tropical plants. So the ones that I normally see in my neighborhood when temperatures get down close to freezing, the what is it, Hawaiian tea or Hawaiian Thai plants, TI, the little kind of reddish foliage plants, they always seem to get damaged first. And it doesn't have to get all the way down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit for them to be damaged. It's when you get close to freezing, they're going to show some damage. And then the colder you get, it all depends on your plant, how old it is, exactly where it is in your yard. Is it tucked up where it stays warmer? Is it way out in the middle of your front yard, out there exposed to the cold wind and the frost and everything else late at night? So if you're new to Florida, it varies, and you'll find out this coming winter. And to make it even more confusing, it doesn't always get particularly cold during the winter. Last winter, it got cold, but it stayed just above freezing. And I have a patch of bananas in my backyard, and it stayed just warm enough where none of them suffered any damage. I did not lose any leaves or anything. So spring started, and boom, they took off, started growing. I have a bunch of bananas out there. I need to get pictures of it, a huge banana flower, and it should be blue Java bananas. So if we don't get a major freeze in the next month or so, hopefully I might actually end up with a bunch of bananas. So that's,
this is probably not a good time to be buying a lot of little annual flowers. There are a few that are happy through the colder weather. Snapdragons come to mind. I like those, and that's one of the plants that you can put in now, and they're probably going to be happy through the season. So, but you have to be very careful.
pansies, petunias, and snapdragons are the three reliable ones to plant in your garden now for the winter, because they take the cold weather. They can get frost on them, and they'll drop their flowers, but they come right back. It doesn't kill them. They're very cold hardy. When we start to get up into March and April, they're not hot hardy. So they're going to decline, and you're going to want to replace them once we get back into warm weather. But if you want some color in your front flower bed during the winter, pansies, petunias, and snapdragons are three winners. So, Teresa, if you are lurking in the background, if you want to look up ylang ylang to see if we can grow it here in Central Florida, I'm not really familiar with that. Anybody else?
No.
It's a tropical plant. I've seen it in they had one in the greenhouse, in one of the greenhouse things when I was in undergrad. My guess is no. My guess is that it is too cold here. Or especially right now, it's going to be too cold here soon. I think it smells really nice. That's what I know about it.
Okay. And I know some of these things, they're very, very happy here during the summer. Hot, steamy, they handle our heat just fine because they're tropical plants. The problem is once we get into winter, if we do have a cold winter, you need to plan in advance. You need to have that plant in a container where you can move it and keep it safe. You can put things around in your patio, your back porch. You can cover them. You can toss up a really quick just PVC structure over it, cover it with an old blanket, sheets, things like that. But you don't want to be thinking about that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're watching the afternoon weather and they're saying it's going to get down to 27 in your neighborhood that night. You need to plan in advance. So don't do like I've done in the past. Oh, what am I going to do now? Honey, I need a blanket.
Yeah.
Go out there and throw it over things and hope for the best.
You know, a lot of times you get these really clear nights where it's really calm. There's not much air movement, and it's really a beautiful night, except for the fact that the radiation is tremendous off the ground. The temperature drops really quick. You get into the frost area just on the surface. If you have any kind of cover above things at all to stop the radiation off into space, you don't have a problem. But so many of the plants sit there and because of radiation, they drop down to you know 30 degrees, which is fatal for them, and yet the air temperature is still in the 40s. So that confuses people, and it's understandable. But it's just a case of heat wants to go to cold, and outer space is cold, and the heat off the ground heads straight to outer space, and when there's no cloud cover, it makes it really easy. So uh, that you need to be prepared. Some of the things need to be covered, and the funny part about it is you can throw anything on a lot of these plants. Tomato plant, you can take a waste basket and stick over the plant, protects the plant really well. But if you don't do anything, you end up losing them. And plastic is, as a general rule, not a good thing. Plastic is generally conductive. The plastic gets cold, the heat just goes right through it, and everything around it gets cold. Where it touches the plant, you end up with frost damage. So I don't recommend using plastic, but anything cloth. On these occasions where we're only going to have a couple of hours of low temperatures, not a big problem. It's easy to protect for. But if we have one of those nights where it gets into the mid 20s or lower for 3 or 4 hours, if you don't have some real protection, if you don't have a plant tinted so the heat out of the ground is protecting it, you're really going to lose the plants. And nothing was brought home about that more to me than I had a dozen beautiful Hawaiian lay plants. I thought, man, I'll take my plumeria. They're all big. They've been in these pots. I'll put them in the ground and make a really nice little screening area across the back. Went to 21 degrees 3 days later. Those plants laid on the ground. They were all soggy, killed the root structure, everything, So you really need to be careful on how you treat the plants. So some plants you're probably better off to keep them in pots forever with the intention of putting them inside. Little key lime plant, I kept one of those going for 13 years till I hurt my back and couldn't put it in the garage one night when it was going to freeze. And I knew it was going to freeze it would hurt it. But
yeah,
you can keep the plant pruned up a little bit, do a little root pruning on it, and that plant could have basically produced limes forever and ever and ever. That really works well. So nothing wrong with being able to protect the plants and keep them potted.
Okay, we have a question on here from Alessandra. She asked, she has a drip tape irrigation in my vegetable garden, which is great. That's a great way to save water and put it right where you want it. Do you know the PSI recommended for this kind of drip tape? You would have to figure out the manufacturer, and I'm sure if you go to their website, they have that kind of information. But from a practical point of view, if you're running it just off of a spigot on the outside of your house, you don't have a gauge or any way to measure it, how much PSI it's putting out at any particular point when you turn the handle. So with these things, it's best to hook it up, turn the water on just a little bit, go out there and see if it's, the water is coming through the way that it should, whether it's a soaker hose or drip tape, depending on exactly how it's made. Turn it up a little bit more, turn it up a little bit more until it's working correctly. Don't ever start with just turning the water on full blast, because you may blow the end off. You may damage the drip tape. I know if you have a system and they have micro irrigation with the teeny little spray heads, it'll blow the tops off. It'll blow the spray head off the hose. You don't want to start with full pressure. Start with lowest pressure and just turn it up bit by bit by bit until things are running the way you want them to. And yes, cold is all relative. I'm sure if our friend Lily in Pennsylvania is watching us today, she would disagree that it's cold here. I'm sure it's a whole lot colder up there in Pennsylvania.
It was cold to me.
Yeah,
I thought it was cold.
And it's supposed to be a whole lot colder come Saturday morning, I think. So plan on going out in the afternoon, enjoy the beautiful sunny warm weather, because by middle of the afternoon it's warmed up some. Enjoy the unusually brisk temperatures early in the morning on the back porch with a cup of coffee, and drag out your sweaters. I got time to go digging for jackets, I suppose, long sleeve shirts. Got to wear pants every day. So, but a good point is, and I totally agree, it's so much easier to be working out in the yard when it's cooler. I know that I can go a whole lot longer than if it's 90.
Well, actually, if you were working, it wasn't cold out, but if you were coming from being in a nice warm bed and having a nice cup of coffee before you went outside, yes, it was cool.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. It always warms back up. Always. So, Colby, have you gotten any interesting or unusual questions the past week?
No, not anything too crazy, but I did have something that I wasn't sure the best way to answer, and it wasn't because I didn't know how to, treat the problem in a vacuum. It was more of a big thing. So a coworker actually was talking about how they have a lot of property, 30 some acres, and they have air potato, like really bad. They have a lot of it, because typically what I tell people is, well, the best thing to do is you're gonna have to pull it up. But when you have that much, it's kind of that can be a bit of a chore, especially if it's just one person.
Yeah.
So looking at like on that grand scale, I've had to think about it a little bit, and because those chemical treatments on those air potatoes that's going to kill your vines, sure, but you still have the what's the term? I know, because they're not tubers, they're
the bulbils.
Bulbils. So you have those bulbils that are just going to grow back. So what would you recommend if you have a lot of them, like a real big stand of air potato?
You're going to have to use a lot of different control steps. There is the air potato leaf beetle, which was released a number of years ago and has become endemic, and they should be seeing them show up every summer before the end of summer. And they help because they eat the leaves, they damage the plant. We've noticed, as a general rule, one of the first things the vines do is they stop making the bulbils or the potato-looking things, or they make far fewer of them. So it slows the spread, but it doesn't get rid of the vines. Now, they do have a slightly different species. It's the same. No, it is a different species of beetle. It looks the exact same, though. And it's the air potato bulbil beetle. So if your coworker has the vines and they're making a lot of the bulbils or the potatoes, because all of them can sprout. During the winter, they fall off, they land on the ground, boom, now you have another and another and another. But these beetles eat the bulbils. They really don't like the leaves, but they eat the heck out of the potatoes. You can look online. Florida Department of Agriculture is raising them and shipping them. You have to fill out a form. It takes time. They don't raise them and ship them during the winter, but you can contact them. And if you have both beetles active on your property, it's really going to help to slow the spread of it. But ultimately, to get rid of them, you have to remove them. And you could use chemical controls. If you use a systemic herbicide, generally in the fall, when all the nutrients are going down into the rhizome, it's going to pull the chemicals down and kill the whole thing. Do that in the spring, you'll kill the vines. 3 weeks later, boom, new vines are coming back. So it's not very helpful. If the vines are all tangled up in your prized azaleas, if you spray it with an herbicide, you're going to damage the azaleas also. So that's a problem too.
And that's pretty much is what I told him about the beetles. I was like, you might want to. I know they're not doing them right now, but you need to stay with it and check. But the main thing, and this is with anybody who has a particularly bad pest plant issue, I tell them it's like you're never going to get rid of them all at once. It is a continuing effort. You should not aim for eradication. You aim for control because that's what everybody does. So yeah, everyone in the know, right? Your agencies and such, they're all aiming for control. So it's this is a thing that takes some time. It's season after season. You have to stick with it to get control over, especially the ones that are invasive, not just pest plants, but the real deal bad boys. You gotta stay with them because they're not. You're never gonna get rid of them in one season.
Yeah, things like air potato vine, Kogan grass. You're not going to get rid of every last blade of Kogan grass. Control the best that you could hope for, and obviously, if you have 30 acres, you have a much larger problem than I would with, I don't know what we have, quarter acre, residential lot. And even I have an air potato vine that really didn't come up this year. I did cut it back. I got it from a bucket of contaminated compost I got from somebody a couple years ago.
That's the worst. You're trying to do the right thing, and that's why you have to pay attention. And that's if you're getting rid of air potato, one thing I like to remind people: if you have it and you get rid of it, don't throw those potatoes in your yard waste if you can help it. And really, the easiest thing to do is to bag it and put it in the trash, I think. But you put them. You can put them in the freezer, and that'll take care of them. You put for 24 hours in the freezer.
Yes, the potatoes. If you put them in the freezer for 24 hours, it kills them, and they won't germinate and sprout them.
Yeah, so then you could put them in your yard waste, I suppose. But that's with any of those invasive plants, any of that invasive plant material, or even just weeds. You really have to be careful. You don't just want to be willy-nilly with it. You need to dispose of it properly.
Yeah, and you can get these things through contaminated compost, fill dirt for new construction. I've seen new construction sites where they bring in fill dirt, and you can see the air potato vines already popping up. We saw that a couple years ago in Weekiwachi live in person. So getting potted plants from friends, going out and thinking it's a really pretty vine and digging it up and deliberately planting it on your fence, not a good idea.
It's all due diligence. That's with anything. I think anything you're bringing onto your property or in your house, you should probably pay attention to where it came from. That's more than gardening. I think you can learn some pretty valuable lessons there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we even have an issue in the county of a large subdivision, a large neighborhood. And are you familiar with the Chinese orchids?
The orchid tree, or
not off the top of my head, but
no, it's
sure.
It's a Chinese orchid that comes from a bulb. Bernie, you saw them; they were at the office. The samples they brought in. If not, Teresa, I think, still has them. They're it looks like an apple, and when it first sprouts, you might think it looks like an amaryllis. It's a Chinese orchid. And it does flower. It doesn't get a really big, spectacular, beautiful flower, but it does flower. Oh my God, they spread like crazy. They make new bulbs. They reproduce like crazy, and they're very frequently brought in and spread through contaminated compost. This neighborhood got truckloads of compost, and they have a lot of Chinese orchids now. And when they get loose in your yard, in your flower beds, they'll pop up in your lawn. They'll go everywhere, and they'll pop up everywhere. So, big problem for them. Unfortunately, how they got
it. With those, there's something that's good to touch on there with the invasive plants. So there are plants that are listed by University of Florida and other institutions that make those lists that are listed that you can just buy at the store. You can go buy it at a lot of stores. You can buy them free and clear. No one's going to stop you. And the reason there is that the regulation. So the ones that are illegal that you can't buy, that list is from the state. And as everybody knows, it takes forever for the government to do stuff like that. So regulation takes time. So they're not up with the educational institutions that are researching this all the time. So if you see something that you're not really sure about, just check. It's really easy. If you Google any plant, pretty much any plant species you can buy in the store, Google it, tag on IFAS at the end, and you'll find out really quick if it's something that you should be messing with. Because, like I said, you can just buy plenty of species that are proven to be invasive that just aren't illegal yet.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, very few of them are banned or have any controls on them as far as moving them, raising them, selling them, buying them. There's really surprisingly few. I know I'll see every year on Facebook in the fall, everybody wants a golden rain tree, which are terribly invasive. People like camphor trees. It is a fast growing shade tree, but you're probably going to regret it. They do get brittle. They do not stand up to high winds and hurricanes and tropical storms very well. They always have competing leaders. So instead of one trunk or two trunks, they'll have like 10. And that makes them very dangerous in high winds eventually. So not a good choice for a front yard shade tree. But you can purchase all of them. Here we have something completely different. So Bassem wants to know how to get rid of grain beetles. Bernie, any advice?
Well, I think he's talking about what we call household pest or kitchen pest. Mm-hmm. And but the thing to do is just throw it out, clean up everything, and start over. They're other than the fact that they're really a nuisance, they aren't the big problem that you would expect. They're a localized thing, and I think everybody's had that problem. You buy something and it's got one or two little larvae someplace, and the next thing you know, you've got a million of them. If you had a bird, you feed it to the bird, but other than that, there's not much you can do. And just cleanliness, just clean out the cupboard, get rid of the grain that's the problem. Check your cereals. If your breakfast cereals are contaminated, but usually it's the bag of flour or the Cheerios box or something, and getting rid of that pretty well cleans it up.
Yeah, I've seen contaminated bagged dog food. People got beetles in it. Years ago, I got rice weevils, and it's an actual weevil. They're very, very small, and I obviously bought a bag of rice from the grocery store, and it was contaminated, and I didn't know until I noticed them. There was a lot of them. Just had to go through the whole pantry, check everything, open everything up. You check your Bisquick, your flour, everything else to see if it's contaminated or not. If it is, throw it away. Pulled everything out, cleaned everything really well with bleach spray. Gave me a good chance to clean out the pantry anyway. And never seen them ever since. No problem. Long gone.
Got a item here. Had a customer with one of these kind of items. There's a million of these things. You buy them at the store. They're under $10. So this particular one tells you how moist the soil is, whether it's light or dark soil, whatever that means, and what pH is. And I had a fellow that had bought one of these and checked the pH of his soil, and the needle was between 6 and 7, and he was having a terrible time growing grass. And when the university soil test came back, his soil was 7.8. So the accuracy of a $5 device is very, very, very poor. So basically the moisture meter tells you whether the soil is completely dry or not completely dry. Should only say dry or maybe not dry. And the pH, it should say you've got some. But as far as putting numbers on it, man, they just can't do it. A pH meter A cheapy one's close to $100. So if you're buying something from the store and it shows you all these functions and it's $10 or maybe even $20 for the deluxe version, uh, don't count on them for being accurate. And it's amazing how many of this kind of thing they sell. I mean, it looks nice. It's a great idea if only it truly worked. Our sister extension office over in Sumter County uh, decided to do pH testing as a service, and they fired everything up and had the little kit, and they could do potassium and magnesium and really give you the information on the soil. The only problem was they couldn't get consistently within 30% of what the numbers that the university were giving. So, uh, it's nice to have an approximation, but if you buy these little strips or the little kit that you're checking for phosphorus or you're checking for potassium, uh, that's a good reference on whether you have some or not. But it's a very, very poor excuse for how much you have. So just be aware that these kind of things looks like a lollipop. You can't really suck on it and do anything good. And other than that, it doesn't help you much in the garden. Save the $10, use it to buy a real lollipop and enjoy it. Sit there in the house and don't worry about it.
There you go. And the University of Florida soil test is only $10. So
isn't that amazing?
I know, and they'll give me an accurate number. I know many of those little off-the-shelf meters like what you have there are, as a general rule, frequently off by 1 point. So it'll say your pH is 6.5, but in reality is 7.5. Sometimes that makes a difference. Sometimes it doesn't make a difference. Depends on your exact situation. But it shows that your soil has a pH. It just doesn't show very accurately what it is.
Yeah,
that is important to know for a lot of plants.
And you have to remember the pH scale. A 7 pH is 10 times higher than 6 pH. It's not that like these things really do matter. And with those tools like Bernie showed, those are measuring it with like low voltage electrical conductivity in the soil. That's not going to give you the same reading as a chemical pH test, which is what I assume that the university uses, because that's the way you calculate it. It's not that's giving you an estimation based on the conductivity between those two little metal prongs you stick in the ground. It's really important that that if you're going to try to get a good number, that you're doing a chemical measurement, not some electrical estimation of your pH.
The university takes your soil sample, takes a measured quantity of it, adds a liquid called malic solution, which is a very, very mild acid, and it dissolves certain things out of the soil. They run that through a plasma, and the plasma produces colors depending on what is in the soil. So potassium would produce a color of a certain color, and the intensity is how much potassium there is. So they have this thing that looks at the light spectrum and says, oh, we have potassium of 2 pounds per 1,000 pounds or whatever it was. It's so much potassium, and there's some color bands for sodium. There's some color bands for each different element, and by the amount of light they get, they can tell exactly what's in there. So they start out, they run a little calibration sample, and they know exactly what the machine is telling. They run your sample through there and compare it against an absolute reference, and type it all up and send you back a beautiful report. And now they even tell you the minor nutrients, the things that you used to have to get as extras. And uh, it comes back and it says you have X amount of phosphorus, which is good, or maybe it's really high, or it's low, or the potassium is high or low, or your magnesium is high or low. All the things that you need tells you everything you need to know about the minerals in the soil. It doesn't tell you about the organic matter, doesn't tell you about the microbes, doesn't tell you if there's something poison. It just tells you about the minerals. The little machine that they're doing that with is $500,000. The operator that does it has to have a lot of training. It's a really neat thing. I've been there a couple of times. I'm just amazed. I love to watch the thing run. And the little samples are just going through. But it is a great, great service. And it's a lousy $10. And you get all that information. So if you have never done that, and you're a Florida resident, you should do it at least once. The thing that happens is the builder comes in and he puts your house all together, and they get all done, and maybe they got a bunch of scrap stuff. They go out and they dig a hole and they bury the scrap. Now they've cleaned it up. Now your yard is kind of lumpy and unlevel, and they go out and they bring in 2 or 3 truckloads of something, and they spread it out. And now what you have for the topsoil, the top foot that you're trying to grow your grass in, isn't even the same thing as your lawn was to begin with. So you have no idea what the starting point is. If you want to put in a garden, your backyard may have no relationship to what your front yard is. And your neither yard may have any relationship to what it was before they started. So maybe the guy down the street has a beautiful lawn, everything works perfect, he has no problem. And you do exactly what your neighbor does, and you have the crappiest lawn in the neighborhood, and you don't understand it. Well, the truth is, if you don't know what the lawn is, if you've never done a soil test, you have no basis to even begin to figure out where the problem is. The grass has to be the right grass, the care has to be the right care, and the other thing about it is what's underneath the grass, and that is that good old-fashioned Florida dirt, which is like the stuff under your fingernails, because until you know what it is, it really isn't soil.
I think that machine, it's probably a mass spectrometer where they shoot all the ions at. If you want to know how in depth they go, just look up a picture of an industrial mass spectrometer, and then you'll know that dude knows what he's doing, as it's a really incredible looking machine. It looks like something from Star Trek. It's crazy.
They open a little door and let you see the flame in there, and it's really kind of neat because the flame is all one color until they put the sample in, and then it changes colors, and they're measuring every color that's in there. And if you could imagine the spectrum being spread out, there's little peaks and valleys everywhere on that spectrum. So
yeah, it's like ionized, like your plasma, your ionized gas that they're shooting like ions at it at super fast, and that's how they generate different color. It's actually super interesting if you're interested in physics or any of that. If you want to look up mass spectrometry, it's kind of funny that little fun history fact for today. A litmus test. Have you ever heard that? You ever heard that expression? That is how pH was measured, like in dye that they put onto paper, and then they would dip it in a solution. That's where that comes from. That's measuring pH. For those of you who did not, I learned this relatively recently in the past couple of years where that phrase comes from, but it just made me think of it because we were talking pH scales and colors and whatnot.
Yeah, in the soil testing lab, if you have special needs or special situation, they do a lot more testing there. I know that I'm involved with a grant project with Hernando County Solid Waste Department making compost, and we have had to send samples off, and we need to know the percentage of organic matter, the exact levels of different types of nitrogen, which is something they don't normally test for the homeowner test. and I'm having to go through all the different tests and pick out, okay, we need this one and we need this one, and figuring out the cost. They really do it all. Everything that we need. It was just a matter of me looking through, and I'm not used to sending off samples for those in-depth kind of tests. I'm used to sending them off for more homeowner would need to know.
That's the same lab that does like the livestock waste testing.
Yep.
You can send cow dung and chicken dung. Yep. Yeah.
We had to get a test under the livestock waste testing category to test the organic or the different components of the compost. We sent a sample of the compost off to get it tested. And it confused me because that fell under the livestock waste testing category.
I thought it was kind of interesting, since we're talking about sending this stuff off for tests, that when they produce hay, they send the hay off and get an analysis of the hay. Mm-hmm. And every time they cut the hay, the analysis goes down. And it reaches a point where eventually the analysis shows that there isn't enough protein or whatever they're looking for in the food to sell it as a legitimate horse hay, for instance. Uh-huh. And at that point, they plow the field up and replant. So one of the farmers was in, and he had just finished collecting his information. He said, well, I'm pretty sure I can cut it 2 more times and still pass. He said, I sell really high quality, so I have a number that I won't go below. And he said, I keep all my customers that way. He said, some of this hay you're buying, if you analyze it, you might as well be feeding them straw. So
yeah, if you're someone who has livestock that really cares about what you're feeding them, make sure you ask if they, if they've tested it. If it's I mean, a lot of times you can look and see bad hay, but there are some intricacies there that you can only find with like lab testing, and a lot of them do it. A lot of them really send it off. I think that's pretty common among your hay dealers. At least it was with all the ones that I was familiar with. I wanted to mention too, before we move on to the question, I looked up the FISC, the federal noxious weed list. So that their current one was published in 2010 and was updated in 2017. So that's, it was, the last time it was updated, I was in high school. I know that they've added plenty of different plant species the universities have. So just kind of a reminder to check up on that because they're not federally listed yet.
So we got a question from Bassem, and this is a pretty easy one. When is the best time to prune your grapevine? Late winter before it starts growing in the spring. So I guess February? You could do it in January.
I would think January.
Yeah. And University of Florida has a very good fact sheet on growing muscadine grapes that has diagrams of exactly how you want to prune those vines. You need to prune it. You can't just go out there with the gas-powered hedge clippers and chop away. You have to hand prune it to get the main stem going that's on your trellis and cut it back so that you have the new growth and the new shoots, which is going to give you all your grapes for next year. So, hey guys, anybody has any other questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments, and we will do our very best to answer them. Let me start showing some contact information here. So if you would ever like to contact me, if you have a question or a problem, best way to get a hold of me is shoot me an email. Send pictures, lots of pictures. Clear pictures. Clear pictures work better than blurry pictures. And pictures of things up close, far away, especially with trees. People ask tree questions, and it really helps if we can see what the whole tree looks like, and then what it looks like closer up, and then a close-up of the trunk, the branches, the leaves falling off, whatever the specific issue might be. If you'd ever like to get a hold of Bernie, Bernie is at our office on Thursdays, and there is the phone number. you're always more than welcome to come by and bring him a sample or ask him your question in person if you want to meet somebody famous like Bernie. And for those of you who might be watching us live on YouTube, please be sure to follow us on Facebook. Everything that we have going on, classes, things live online, things recorded online, we try our very best to put it all on Facebook. So that's a very, very easy way to follow everything that we're up to. Our master gardeners have a nursery, and here is the address. It is in Brooksville, right behind the Hernando County Fairgrounds. Oliver Street is the same street that has animal control on it, if you're familiar with it. And they are there on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8:30 in the morning until noon. They have a fantastic supply of native plants, Florida-friendly plants, things that are going to grow well in Hernando County. So we don't sell South Florida palms. We don't really have any palms. We don't sell hydrangeas that grow beautifully up in Georgia or North Carolina, but don't grow well here. They just have things that are going to do well here in this area. If you would like more info on a wealth of different topics, if you visit Hernando County Government's YouTube channel, they have a playlist for Florida-friendly landscape classes, and they have one for extension classes. And this is where we generally record all of our past classes, and they end up on Hernando County Government's YouTube channel. So I know that I have classes on there about growing strawberries, growing sweet potatoes in the summer, growing calabaza, which is a tropical hard squash, spring vegetable gardening, a whole bunch of different topics. So be sure to take a few minutes and check that out sometime. And if you ever want to get in touch with Colby or get more information about our Hernando County rain barrel classes or our compost bin classes, just go here, right down below to Colby's link tree, and it has all that information there all together, all on one page, whatever you're looking for. Is that it? Did I cover it all? I'm just scrolling through the list here, so.
Pretty much.
I think so. I think you got it. Quick plug, though. I got something. So starting in January, we're going to be hosting our water awareness speaker series classes. Those are going to be here the second Wednesday of every month. We're going to have a variety of different speakers talking about all kinds of stuff. I know the very first one, which is on January 8th, is going to be Dr. Lester and I talking about cold weather landscape care, how to protect your plants from the cold, in that vein. And those presentations will have all kinds of there's all kinds of stuff. It's going to be really helpful. We're going to have cookies and breakfast, that type of deal.
Ooh, I like
prizes and things. Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. And the Eventbrite for that is linked in the link tree if you're interested. Like I said, we're having them every month, and they're going to be a lot of fun. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that.
Do you have a flyer for that by any chance?
Yes. It'll be up on the county website. I can send it to you to put out.
Yeah, send it to me so I can throw it in my monthly email newsletter, and we'll put it on Facebook also.
About 20 years ago, I planted a cabbage palm. Last week, I was standing there and I looked up at the palm and I thought, that tree has really done well. Went through like the third hurricane that it's been through. No damage whatsoever, and it's beautiful. Last night, pulled in the drive, looked up at the tree, and the bottom third is bronze colored. Uh-oh. Unfortunately, the cabbage palms in our county have almost all of them have done this. It's fatal. It makes you kind of sick to your stomach to realize that a plant that you've taken care of for so long is gone. But lethal bronzing is destroying a lot of palm trees. If you're going to spend the money for a palm tree, you want to think long and hard about what would you do if that tree develops a disease that's fatal? And the odds are, if you pick one of the date palm family or cabbage palm family, it's probably going to happen eventually. So, uh, you know, think about how many things you could do with that money doing something else, how many other plants you could buy before you buy a palm. It's getting tough. It's like citrus. If you plant a citrus tree, you can be pretty sure it's going to get citrus greening. So,
Yeah.
you know,
We have a citrus question here. Alessandra can't remember why you don't use mulch around citrus trees, because she'd like to put some 1 foot away from my sugar bell to avoid landscapers to run into the tree. So I can answer that one. With citrus trees, you don't want to put any kind of mulch up close to the trunk, because it can really encourage the disease called foot rot, and that's trunk rot that rots the trunk right there, pretty much at ground level. So you really don't want to pack mulch up against the trunk of any tree, because now it's wet. It might get a little nasty, and it's really going to encourage disease. You can technically mulch citrus trees lightly, but you really don't want to have that mulch within maybe a foot of the trunk, just to be careful. So from a foot out, you can create a planting bed to help keep the landscapers out of it, but you just don't want to get that mulch too close to the trunk, because citrus is really susceptible to that disease. Other trees can get it if you volcano mulch or get ridiculous and start packing a mountain of figure. I'm going to block those weeds real good. I'm going to put a foot of mulch right up against the trunk to block them. We usually see those trees die.
Yeah, the commercial people use Roundup and clean the everything out underneath the tree. There's absolutely no reason not to use Roundup and make it so you don't have to mow close to the tree. It's beneficial in that it eliminates all the competition underneath the tree. It doesn't kill the tree if you get it on the leaves. Doesn't do them any good, but it does not hurt the tree to just get it on the trunk. The citrus is pretty resistant to Roundup. So Roundup is only effective through green things. So it really doesn't hurt the trunk, and it does clean up nicely under the trees. When I had a bunch of live citrus trees, I kept them all clear down under so that it was easy to mow, and you really don't want grass growing underneath a citrus tree. The tree itself doesn't like that.
And the same generally goes for all different landscape trees. Magnolia trees. Got a picture a week or two ago, and I had to actually kind of confer with somebody else who is a tree expert about what could be wrong. And it was a small magnolia tree, and it just looked unhealthy. You know how magnolia trees can look sickly? They're just not really full. They're losing leaves, bare branches, this and that. It was in their front yard, and they had a little round bed around it, and they had landscape rocks. Magnolia trees don't like a lot of landscape rocks on top of their trunk or on top of their roots, because the upper roots need to be very close to the surface. I couldn't tell what kind of rocks they were. If it's limestone, you're just, pumping up the pH over time as that limestone very, very slowly leaches a little bit. So rocks don't make a very good, sometimes, mulch for magnolia trees or any other kind of landscape trees. So for trees, go ahead and mulch them. You can use wood chips. Make sure you keep it away from the trunk, and don't go too heavily, and you should be good. You can, however, Katrina, put compost around the trees. That's a really good idea. You don't want to put a foot of compost around them, because now you're burying those roots way too deep. You can put a light scattering a couple times a year, and over time, long term, it's really going to improve your soil, because we have worms, we have insects, we have things that take that organic matter and pull it down to within the top couple inches of the soil, and it's going to make your tree hopefully grow better over time. So yes, compost literally helps with pretty much everything, trees included. And
compost is probably the best thing you can put on our sandy soils to aid in growth. It's better than fertilizer. It doesn't replace fertilizer necessarily, but it does some things that people don't think about. The sandy soils are very low in organic material, so they're very low in nutrients for the microbes. The microbes are the things that are converting those minerals into something that the plant can take up and use to grow. So when you put down compost, you're putting down minerals, you're putting down microbes, you're putting down everything that the plant needs, and you're putting down something that is basically an organic material that will, within a year or two, disappear. So you're building the soil, but you're not building a higher amount of soil. So you're not covering the roots over a long period of time and putting them deeper into the ground. It works so well. It's the miracle product. So we can't recommend it too much.
Yeah. I can't really think of any situations where it's not going to help or not a good idea. And I guess last question or comment for this week, Katrina says that she grew potatoes in a bucket in her apartment and they did well, and now she's growing onions. So that's great. Good for you. Even if you live in an apartment, a condominium, even I've noticed houses now, they're in neighborhoods, it's not zero lot line, it's like micro lot line. The yards are so incredibly tiny that you're not going to be digging a quarter-acre vegetable garden in your backyard. It's not even that big. So
it's all about how bad you want it.
Yeah, even in a little bit of space, you can still grow something.
I'd have never thought about growing potatoes in a bucket, and I don't see a reason why it wouldn't work. So
they have bags that you put together, and they button up or zip up on the side, fill it with soil, you grow them in that. When it comes time to harvest, you just unzip it and you dump it out. So picture dumping it out on a tarp or your driveway, pick through and pick out the potatoes. It works really well. So, hey guys, it looks like it's about that time for this week. So thank you so much for joining us. We will not be here next week because next week is going to be Thanksgiving and we will not be here. And you shouldn't be here either. You should be enjoying Thanksgiving and eating plenty of turkey. I see we even have the little turkey emojis on here. We will be back the week after that, though. I'm always looking for guests, so we'll have somebody in here hopefully with us the Thursday after next. And we would like to wish everybody a wonderful, safe, and happy Thanksgiving. Even Buddy was watching here today. It looks like everybody. So everybody have a fantastic, safe Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. Make sure you cook and serve some vegetables to go with everything else. Not too much carb loading, guys. Not that good for you. And we will see you again the Thursday after next at 10 in the morning. We'll be back here to help answer your questions. So until then, thank you so much. Everybody have a great week. Bye.
Bye.